MashaAllah. Isn't it always wonderful to hear the beautiful recitation by Sayyid Haydar Jizani? Thank you so much for that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome once again to Hijab and Etiquette. Now today, inshallah, we're going to be talking about the hijab and the idea that it is forced upon us. Many non-Muslims are very quick to turn around and say that Islam forces the woman to observe the hijab. But if you think of it from another perspective, in many ways, non-Muslims, particularly Western governments, are trying to impose their own views of how a woman should dress by banning certain items, even if it's just within certain institutes. Now, joining us as always is Sister Masooma Jaffer. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing today?
Alhamdulillah. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. This is a really interesting topic that we're talking about. I guess the first thing with such a sensitive topic like this is to try and understand the other party's point of view. So why do you think that Western governments have gone as far to ban certain items of religious value, such as the burkini or even the niqab, for example?
Okay, I suppose when you look at the niqab, it could come from the perspective of that they can't identify a person who's wearing niqab. So for national security reasons, I suppose they can use that excuse to ban it.
Yeah.
But I don't see what stops a woman from identifying another woman who's in niqab.
Yeah.
So why do you need to ban it? If a woman decides this is what she wants to wear, and you need to check out she is who she says she is, then ask a woman to look at, a woman security guard to look at her.
So you don't think that wearing the niqab is a threat to national security then?
I don't see how, because if it's a matter of identification, then a woman with niqab would have no problem taking off her niqab in front of another woman. And there are women security guards, so I don't see the problem. When you're talking about the burkini, I don't understand why there is a reason to ban that, because you're not affecting anyone else. If you choose to fully clothe yourself when you're swimming, that is your choice. You're not affecting anyone else. You're not causing a problem to anyone else. So again, I see no reason to ban it. A lot of people talk about. I suppose they come from the perspective of that they see it as oppression.
Yes.
And so they want to free us. But they're using the term oppression and saying they want to free me, whereas they're truly oppressing me because they're not allowing me to dress the way I want to dress, and that is oppression.
Yeah.
So in the name of oppression, they're actually oppressing me, if that makes sense. And then they come from the perspective of, we don't want to be a religious government, we want to be a secular, and religion and secularism should be different. You can't bring in religion into the secular world, into education and things like that. But again, if you think about it from perspective of, I as a Muslim, Islam is my life. It's not just a religion that I follow.
It's a lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yes.
So by telling me I can't go into an education system with my hijab, you're actually stopping me from being educated, because I will not remove my hijab, and therefore I will not get educated.
Yeah.
So you're actually making it worse for me.
Yeah, and where are these women doctors, these women architects, these teachers, these scientists, these producers? Where are they going to come from if they don't have the education in the first place? And what does it matter if you're turning up to a school or a university? What does it matter when what you're wearing? It's your attitude that's the most important thing at the end of the day. Yeah. And another thing with like the bikini as well, like I find it very bizarre, because at the end of the day it just looks like a swimsuit, like if you're just going snorkeling or diving, like what's the difference really? Like I don't know, it's just been made into such a big issue. And so I guess just another thing that would be interesting to discuss is, you mentioned that these governments, by doing this, they are oppressing us as such. So like, are they being hypocritical then? Like, what kind of like laws or ideals that Western governments, you know, stand by, are they kind of contradicting through enforcing laws like that?
I think it's looking at it from sort of a very narrow angle. I don't think they've looked at it, you know, from our perspective. Okay, I'm not saying that there is no Muslim woman that is being forced to wear the hijab. You know, it's just because there may be some doesn't mean that's what Islam dictates. That's more from a culture perspective. A lot of Islam taken in the West is from culture rather than Islam itself. Even as a Muslim, when I was growing up, a lot of the things that I thought was Islamic, when I actually started studying Islam, I realized they're not. They're very culturally based. And you can see that the way that Islam is practiced in different mosques. So if you go to an Iraqi mosque, an Iranian, a Khoja mosque, a Pakistani mosque, you know, Islam is practiced quite differently in things like weddings and things like that. And each one thinks that they are doing it from an Islamic perspective, but there's a lot of culture that comes into it. And I think it's important for us as Muslims to know what is culture and what is Islam. And also I think it's important for us to sort of say to people who are non-Muslims that you cannot judge Islam on what Muslims do. You have to look at what Islam is. You know, there's a friend of mine who always says that Islam is the most beautiful religion, but the Muslims seem to be the worst people, and that's really sad.
That does make sense, actually. Yeah, it's really bad on our part, really, because, you know, we've just been given this amazing gift, and like, we don't appreciate it. You know, it really reminds you of the verse from the Holy Quran, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمْ مَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the favours of your Lord do you deny? Like, we're denying everything as such. And going back to this idea that the hijab and force, you know, I suppose you could understand why non-Muslim governments would want to try and, you know, ban certain items of the hijab. But what's more surprising is the fact that there are so-called Muslim governments who actually want to ban items such as the simple headscarf in institutions such as schools and universities. Like,
makes no sense.
Why would they want to do that in the first place? It makes no sense.
It doesn't. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, I frequently travel abroad, and one of the things that I've noticed is when you travel with a non-Muslim airline, they seem to be very much more accommodating when it comes to salah and you wanting to pray on the plane. Whereas when you're traveling with what is considered as a Muslim airline, they're really, really difficult. And you know, when you tell them, I'm sorry, I have to pray, they're like, well, no, just pray on your seat. And I'm like, but there's space here, why can't I pray here? And they're very, very, make it very difficult. In fact, it actually reminds, we went to Dubai, which is supposed to be considered as a Muslim country.
Of course,
when my children were a little bit younger. And we went and we were staying in this very posh hotel. And my children wanted to go swimming, and I have two boys and a daughter. And I took them swimming. My sons were dressed in normal swimming costumes, and you know, and my daughter was dressed in her bikini. And she was swimming, and the lifeguard actually came and told me that I had to take her out of the swimming pool.
Subhanallah.
And I said to him, why? And he said to me, because it's dangerous. And I said, excuse me, how is this dangerous? And he said, no, it's dangerous for her to be swimming with all these clothes on. And I said, it's a swimming attire. And I said, you know what? I tried to explain to him, he wouldn't listen. So I said, you know what? I'm taking responsibility for my daughter. If anything happens to her, it'd be my fault, okay? And he said, no, I'm not allowing it. And I was sitting there arguing with him. And then this I think it was a German couple, if I'm not mistaken, came with their sons. And they were dressed in very similar clothes, with sort of hats which had the flap at the back to sort of, you know, save their back of the neck being sunburnt and so forth, and long, really long shorts that came right down to sort of, you know, nearly their ankles, and long tops and everything. And he had no problem with them swimming in that. And I said, what's the difference between what my daughter's wearing and what they're wearing? And he said, oh, they're wearing it so they don't get sunburnt.
And well, maybe she's not wearing it so she doesn't get sunburned.
I'm like, what difference does it make why they're wearing it? It's the same material. They're covering themselves for whatever reason. My daughter's covering herself for whatever reason. I actually sat there and I made such a big issue out of it, because I think I can't believe I'm in a Muslim country and I am being told that my daughter is not allowed to swim covered as a Muslim should be covered. And I asked to talk to the manager and everything until I made enough of a fuss that they actually allowed her to. And again, it's knowing your rights and, you know, actually standing up for your rights and sort of saying to them, no, I'm not taking this. I'm sorry. You know, you're totally in the wrong. Because you don't perceive this as religion, you're okay with it. Because you perceive what my daughter's doing as religion, you want to show, oh no, we're not religious, we're secular, as if that's something to be proud of. It makes no sense at all.
No, it doesn't. Subhanallah, and that's amazing that you stood by your guns, basically. The funny thing is, you know, I was just reminded that when I was younger, my mom and dad, they used to take me for swimming lessons every week, and one of the things that we had to do to pass and get our certificates to prove that we were competent in the water was actually swimming in clothes.
Yes.
So like they'd tell us, okay, come in like a pair of like old pajamas or something, and then like you have to jump in and you have to like swim around. And because at the end of the day, you know, if you are in a life-threatening situation, say you've fallen in the water and like, you know, you're trying to stop yourself from drowning, you're not going to be fully equipped in like swim gear and goggles and like what's it called, like one of those
a
swim hat. Yeah, you're not going to be equipped for that. Just like, oh, I'm drowning, let me just put my swimsuit on. Like, it's just daft, really, isn't it, when you think about it? So I guess naturally moving on from there is just like, how do we react to, you know, governments or institutions when they try and enforce those laws? I mean, you know, if this is something that happens within our own country, should we be as drastic to potentially, you know, consider moving to a different country, or should we just stand up and protest? What's the best way to go about it?
I think it has to be a personal choice, but I think you need to make some noise. How you do that is up to you. I don't think we can just sit back and say, well, we really have no say, because in the end, it is my country, it is my government. It's, you know, I'm a British citizen, so I have a voice, and I want that voice to be heard. So I think it's really, really important that we do sign petitions, we do make, you know, protest marches and whatever. And in the end, you know, I am 110% sure that I am not going to remove my hijab. No matter what you tell me, I'm not going to take it off. And if that means that you're taking certain rights away from me, that's your choice to do. If I feel I need to do that, or I need to live, you know, I need to do certain things where I can't do it without my hijab, then maybe I need to think about moving. And again, there's a beautiful verse in the Holy Quran which actually talks about where Allah asks, you know, the angels will ask us, was the earth not vast enough? You know, when we say it's like, oh, we were forced to do it, or we couldn't help it. And obviously I'm just saying it in my own words. Obviously the Quran says it much, much more beautifully. But it talks about the fact that we will actually be then asked, well, was the earth not vast enough?
Yes.
Wasn't there anywhere else you could move? So I know it's not as easy as, you know, getting up and just, okay, you know what, I'm moving. I know it takes a lot. But we move for our children's education. We move for work. Why wouldn't we move for our akhirah?
Yeah, absolutely. Just briefly, I want to go back to the point of the niqab. Now, many people associate the niqab with Wahhabism, basically, and you know, I myself, like, I find that quite sad, because actually when you read the narrations of you know, the lives of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the women of the Ahlul Bayt, you know, they covered their faces. So to turn around and say that, you know, the niqab is something for the Wahhabis, like, that kind of makes me feel sad. How do you feel about it?
I think it's your personal choice. I think you know, if you feel you want to cover your face, then that's your choice.
Yes.
Who am I to tell you not to?
Yeah.
It's not wajib unless you feel it's going to, you know, you're so beautiful that you're going to attract attention. But if I want to, that's my choice. In the same way, if I decide I don't want to go to work, that's my choice. If I decide I want to go to work, that's my choice.
Yeah.
You know, as a Muslim woman, I have the right to make those choices.
Yes.
And you can't take that away from me, and you can't tell me what I should and shouldn't do when it comes to things like this.
MashaAllah, what a refreshing perspective as always, sister. Thank you so much for joining me once again.
Thank you.
Next up, dear viewers, we will be answering your fiqh questions, inshallah.